Alright, let's look at a recap of our Hangman so far. Pretty soon we're going to add more advanced features, but this is going to cover the basics. Getting a random word, getting the input, revealing the letters, and repeating that until you win or lose. Let's begin. So first we have the basic loop, which I'm going to put in a main function. I'm going to say def main has something. And then at the very bottom, this is definitely the last line of the program, no matter how much we add, it's going to say main. We run that, and along the way it runs other stuff. So what's in the main? Well, it's going to be sort of what I always call the table of contents. It's going to mention what happens, and if there's anything with lots of details, it's going to be outsourced to another function to handle those details. For example, I'm going to say word equals random word. We're going to pull a word from a word bank, but we don't actually put those things in the code right here. We're just describing the fact that it happens, not how. We're also going to make the blanks. And the way I did that in the first version was just underscore times the length. But I'm going to make a function for that now. And we might have more advanced stuff, like if there's a space in the word, we put a space instead of an underscore. If there's a dot or a hyphen or something, we preserve that to give clues when you see it. Then I've got lives. Lives are how many guesses you have left. You could also call it guesses, and that would make sense. I'm starting 6, and it's going to count down. The final thing we need to keep track of would be the used letters. If you have Hangman on the board, when you're writing on the whiteboard, you put all the bad guesses that have been eliminated so that people can keep track of that in their heads and they don't accidentally say L when they've already said L again. Those things all happen once, and then the other stuff happens multiple times every turn. If it's a real-time game, you have the same idea, but it's multiple things happening every frame instead. Either way, it's a loop, and we're going to say while true. So this goes forever until we hit a break or a return or a quit or anything powerful enough to end that. I'm going to say print blanks, which is going to print our underscores and maybe spaces or other stuff in there too. And then we're going to get the guess, which is the hard part. This is probably the biggest function. It needs to know what the letters we've used are so that it doesn't let you guess the same ones twice. And then we're going to say the main sort of mechanic of the game is if the guess is in the word, then we reveal those, which means we create a new version of the blanks based on the info. It's going to have the blanks and the word and the guess. That's telling you that it's going to be a slightly complicated function because it needs to know 3 things. And you know, it might have some more in there. I'm just going to put ... to remind myself. We might come back. Else, if the guess is not in the word, we're going to say we lose a life. We print. I've got a function that I call draw guy, which is just like showing a picture of the guy, but right now it's empty. And we've got use letters adds the guess. We used a string for that originally because I wrote this in the time we were doing Unit 7. But now that we've done Unit 8, this could be a list as well, and that would make a lot of sense. Then, at the end of each turn, we probably move on to the next, but we have to make sure if the game's over, we don't move on to the next. So there are 2 ways for the game to be over. Either you've got it or you're dead. So I'm going to say if underscore is not in blanks, that means you won because all the underscores have been revealed as a letter. We're going to print the word just to show it as a victory lap. Then I'm going to say you win, and I'm going to say break so we don't accidentally start the next turn. And then a very similar thing happens when you lose. I'm just going to copy it. And the condition is I'm going to say if lives is less than 1. Because we could check if it's 0, but every once in a while you do that and then it accidentally goes below 0 and you're stuck with negative lives, you know. So I'm just going to say less than 1 and say you lose instead. That is it for the main function. We're probably going to add more later if we do try again or solve or something, but that's it for now. We're just going to add these functions where we took all this detailed work and outsourced it to somebody else. So let's go random word that's going to exist, generate, I think I should call that blanks with an S, and that's going to create the blanks. Then we've got get guess. That one is very much like stuff we did in Unit 7 and 8, and 6 actually. And then reveal letters. That's so much typing, I'm just going to copy paste it. Is there anything else? Yeah, there's the draw guy. Even though we're not making it now, I'm going to leave it empty now and fill it in our next draft. Or maybe I'll put something as a little placeholder. So for now, if I hit run, this is not really going to work. And this is not the way I would write it from scratch if I were making this up as I go. I would do smaller parts and test them. But since I've written this several times over the last 2 weeks, I know in my head the general plan. What we're going to do is fill in this, and then we'll get to start, and then we can run it along the way to test, which is always nice. So random word, I'm going to start by just saying hello. It's going to allow us to test things. And for this, I'm going to start by saying underscore times length of word. It's going to allow us to get going. For example, it's going to show enough blanks to match hello. Now, we'll fill that in with something nicer in a minute, but it's always good to get started. Get guess, again, I'm going to start very simple. I'm going to say, give me an input of a guess, because that allows us to type and move on. This part needs something real. You can't just fake it, so let's do a little more work. In the version we wrote 2 weeks ago, we were in Unit 7, and we used the string method of like slice up to the spot, replace the spot, and slice past. And now that we've done Unit 8, we could achieve this a different way. So I'm going to write this a different way, even though it's exactly the same result as what we did last time. So let's pretend we just want some variety, and we're going to do this another way. The blanks, I'm going to turn it into a list, and that means we can replace any item much easier. We could just say like, you know, blanks 2 equals H or something. You don't have to slice, replace, slice. We're easier to replace one. We just have to know which ones. And this is actually kind of hard because you don't know how many. If the person guesses E, there might be 10 E's in there. And so you just can't find one and say, well, that's it. You have to keep looking all the way through until you're sure they're gone. So we could do stuff like for letter, or for character, I guess, char in Word. And then we could replace that one along the way. We had something just like this in Unit 8. And what they told us to do was use the enumerate function. Enumerate gives you where you are and what the thing is. So it gives you 2 styles of loop combined. You get like the I, the index, and you get the item of what the thing is. So we could do something like this where you say, okay, if char is guess, then blanks I equals guess. So we look through the word and we say, oh, if we found the thing they guessed in the spot, then the corresponding spot in the blanks gets switched out. Is that any better than the string version? Not really. I just wanted to try it. And then to bring it back to a string, we have to use the join method. So let's try this and see if it makes any sense or if I'm just rambling on. So if I guess E, it should replace the second character because that's where it is in hello, right? Yeah, it did. If I do L, is it going to do both L's or just one? Let's see. Yeah, it's great. So this is a little different than the function we wrote a few weeks ago, but it does exactly the same job. And it's, I think, probably a little less ugly. Neither one is great. Let's, for now, the draw guy, I'm just going to have it print the score. It's just going to say, you have this many lives left. Later we'll replace that with a picture of the guy. And I'm going to do that with the lovely F string, where if you put a variable in brackets with an equals, it'll show the name and the value. Kind of nice, saves you some typing. This will tell us we have 5 lives left, and I guess we want it every time, or should we only show it when you miss? I don't know, we'll think about it. Let's see if it correctly tells us we're dead if we keep getting them wrong. Yep, it does. So that's good. Let's see if it correctly tells us we won if we win. Yep, it does. So that's good. Now we have to get to these guys. Earlier we wrote something very tiny, what we call a stub, and we want to beef it up with something full featured that does what it's supposed to do instead of the bare minimum. So the random word, we're going to pull a word from a word bank, and we're going to need to import the random module to do that. We're also going to make a separate file for the word bank because I don't want to have like 50 lines at the top with stuff we're not going to use. So I'm going to make a .py file, which is Python. You could use a text file, but what I'm going to do is to just say we're making a list straight up, and then you don't have to do any conversion or anything. Let's do, I don't know, fruits. Apple, banana, I don't know, pear, strawberry, and something else. How about cherry? So you can make this as long as you want. Later we can do categories, different labels. But the idea is we're going to pull one of these and use it as the word throughout the program, which means we're going to import that list. And then we're going to say random.choice words. I did this last time too. I should probably improve, but what I did is I used the same name for the file and the list within the file. But it doesn't matter. Once you've imported it, it's just the list, and you never need to look at the file again. Let's run this to see if we're getting any errors or anything. Yep, well, we know that's banana because we got the A's, so that's nice. This blanks thing is okay for now because these are all single words. They don't have spaces or dots, but we'll come back and improve that later. Let's do the get guess. The get guess is a problem because if you enter a bunch of letters, it says you're wrong. If you enter a number, it says you're wrong. If you enter one that you've already done, it penalizes you. So it should say, hey, we're only going to accept your guess. We're only going to send you on to the other functions if you qualify. Otherwise, we're just going to say, hey, try again. By the way, you see how these are all squished together? Let's add a little, very silly, but let's just add a little print empty line at the end, and then the turns will be a little separated. Looks better, I think. So for this, we want to say, okay, I'm going to get the guess and then check whether or not it's reasonable before I pass it on to the rest of the program. So I'm going to say guess equals this, and then somewhere later we return, but in between we have to check. Okay? So I'm going to use some ifs to say, like, if guess is wrong, then we ask again. If the length is not 1, we tell them guess must be 1 character. If they enter FF, we tell them no. Even if the word has FF in it, they're supposed to do 1 at a time. And since it's Hangman, F would be enough to reveal both of them anyway. We also want to accept only letters. Like I was talking about, we're going to fill in other stuff for you. If it has a dot, if it has an apostrophe, if it has a number, we'll just give it to you. So you should only be guessing letters. And for now, we're going to assume it's lowercase, but you never know. I'm going to add a elif, meaning we're only going to catch 1 at a time. If they break multiple rules, we'll just tell them 1, because that's enough to make it bad. So if the string type has a method called isAlpha, which tells you whether or not it's an alphabetical letter. So if it's not alpha, we need to tell them guess must be a letter. And then I think I'm going to do one more, although we could add more conditions. I'm going to do one more to say it shouldn't be in the used letters. If it is in the used letters, we're going to say you've already used that one. And so if I say H and there's no H, and then later I accidentally say H again, we don't want to penalize me, because if you were playing Hangman in real life, you would not penalize the person. You would just say, oh man, you've already used that one. Try again. Now there's the issue of case. My words are all lowercase. We might end up showing upper, because Hangman and word games in general are usually all upper. You know, if you watch Wheel of Fortune or you play Wordle, it's all uppercase. But what I'm going to do now is just to say guess.lower. So it'll lowercase whatever they get. If for some reason the person types in capitals, we'll just transform it. And now the final thing we need is a while loop, because this only catches it the first time around. We need to say keep going until they're really sure. I'm going to say while true around the whole thing. So this is like, you shall not pass. This is like, no, you're not going to get through, even if you say it wrong 20 times. I'm not going to let you until you say it right. You know that song, Say It Right, by Nelly Furtado? That's like maybe before you were born. It's a good one. Okay, looks all right. Let's test some bad stuff. Must be 1, must be a letter. Already used. Great, now let's make sure it can go back to normal and we're not stuck in the errors. Great. So let's think about one more thing before we end this, which is the generate blanks. Okay? A bunch of people have asked, like, hey, what if we do movie titles and they have spaces? You know, what if it's like The Matrix and The Lord of the Rings, colon, The Two Towers? Or what if it's, I don't know, what's something with a number in it? A short one. Avatar. Let's just say Avatar 2. I know there's really a subtitle, but something. And then something with a with an apostrophe and a dot. Mr. Holland's Opus. Do you guys ever watch that in school? That's like a classic school movie in music class or something.
No.
And then maybe something with a different character. How about Wally has like a asterisk in there. So this is introducing all the other characters. It's also introducing case. We got upper and lower. So that's really 2 in 1. Let's make one of those easy and one of those we actually do it right. So to actually do it right on the blanks, we're going to say, okay, look at each character in the answer. If it's a letter, it turns into an underscore. If it's anything else, we just keep it. So if it's a blank, it's still a blank. If a space, it's still a space. If it's a dot, it's still a dot, whatever. Okay? So we could do that with the for loop. We could say for char in Word, if char dot is alpha, using that same method we used down here, then we're going to have, I'm going to just make a blanks that we're building as we go. Blanks plus equal underscore, meaning if I see an A, I put an underscore. If I see a Z, put an underscore. Otherwise, and I don't want to list all the possibilities. I don't want to say dot, star, asterisk, number, because I'll definitely miss one. I just want to catch the characters that are letters and then say everything else stays the same. Meaning, I'm going to run it just to show the shape of the answer. Like if you see blanks and then a blank dot and then some blanks, you would be like, oh, that's a person with a middle initial. So if I run this and I see something with a 2, well, that looks kind of dumb, but that we know that one's going to be the avatar 2 because it kept now I can't win because it won't let me guess an uppercase, and yet there is an uppercase, so that's an issue. I don't want to make the user type sometimes upper and sometimes lower. That's really annoying, especially when you have one of each in the word. Like if I say A, I want to reveal all 3 A's in avatar, even though some are up and some are down, you know? So what I'm going to do to make it easy is I'm just going to convert them instantly when we pull it from the random word bank. Just going to go convert it right there. Don't even let the upper and lower infect the program, because then every single function would have to try both. Just catch it right at the beginning and say, you know what, we're all upper or we're all lower. So that means you can write the word bank however you want, and then we'll just transform it instantly. I'm going to make it lower because I've already got the other stuff in lower. Let's see if that works. Oh, it did the A thing again. Okay. Uh-oh. Are we getting... Okay. We just got bad luck to get the same one 3 times. That's always an issue with randomness. When you test it, it's harder to test because you don't know if you're getting bad luck or whatever. I don't even remember what my answers are. Okay. Okay. Now you know what this is missing? We're not showing the used letters. I wanted to tell the user, oh, like X and Y and Q are eliminated. So let's add a line that tells them so they don't have to remember. You might call this like quality of life, you know. Let's do some bad ones. So then it says use letters Y, B. Okay. This looks a little weird. Like I said at the beginning, we originally made this as a string. We could use it as a list and get the same job done. Lists are also ugly when you print them, so instead of using some default printing, we're just going to have to make our own, and that's fine. We'll do that. But I want to end this video for now and say this kind of thing is what we want for our first draft. It gets a word, gets a guess, reveals, all the way to the end. And it doesn't work perfectly, it doesn't look perfectly, but it solves the main problems, which is we don't let the user accidentally do something stupid, and we don't make it unwinnable because of our word bank. So if you have something like this, that's great. The reveal letters, you could do it the old-fashioned way like we did in our string version. You could do it another way, that's fine. The main loop, you can add a few things to show a category, ask if you want to play again, draw the guy. We'll get to those later, but for our first draft, we want these basics. Thanks.